Hi everyone, I hope you're doing very well. My name is Juan and welcome back to another book review. So today we're going to talk about the great novel Cat's Eye by the Canadian writer Margaret Atwood. And if you appreciate my reviews and would like to show your support, please give this review a like and subscribe to my channel. That way this video will get to more people who might also enjoy it. Thanks. Okay, so let's talk about Cat's Eye, which was first published in 1988. Margaret Atwood wrote this novel after The Handmaid's Tale, which over the decades has become her most famous novel. And let's be honest, that's thanks to the TV adaptation, the ongoing TV adaptation. But Atwood has had a reputation as a great writer for decades at this point. I remember studying her at university about 20 years ago. Cat's Eye is one of her best novels, which she followed up with the excellent The Robber Bride and the great Alias Grace, and many others that you might have heard about or even read. The only one of her novels I have reviewed so far is Alias Grace, which was also adapted as a TV miniseries. So I am going to link to that review in case you're interested. But let's now go back to Cat's Eye, shall we? So Cat's Eye is the story of Elaine. She's a painter who comes home to Toronto for the first time in many years for a retrospective exhibition of her work. And this makes her think about her childhood friendship with a woman named Cordelia that she has not seen or spoken to in many years. Okay, so something happened between the two women when Elaine was 9 years old that changed their relationship forever. In Elaine's mind, Cordelia was a bully who tormented her when they were children, but there is a lot more to their relationship than that. Elaine and Cordelia's lives intersect again years after that incident when they were 9, but they do not actually stay in touch. The question on Elaine's mind and on the reader's mind, at least it was on mine as I read the book, is whether Cordelia will show up for Elaine's exhibition in Toronto. When I read this novel, I thought it was going to be about bullying and the effects it can have on a person, but I don't think that's what this novel is really about. I see it more as being about femininity and how women relate to each other in a world dominated by men. Atwood has written about female friendship many times. The Robber Bride also deals with this, and of course, in a historical setting also does Alias Grace. Now, Cat's Eye is set in the 1980s, so I assume that Elaine and Cordelia would have been children in the late 1940s and 50s. And I think it's important to bear that in mind when we read this novel. But that is not to say that I think Cat's Eye is outdated. I don't. In a way, I wish it was, because that would mean that we now lived in a more egalitarian society, at least when it comes to gender differences, and we all know that's not true. If you're interested in female friendship or wish to read something that will make you think about women in a patriarchal society, in our patriarchal society, without feeling that you're being preached to, I think I would recommend Cat's Eye. Margaret Atwood is a great writer, and I prefer it when she writes about the world as we know it, rather than when she gets dystopic. So if you have read her science fiction trilogy, Oryx and Crake, or her dystopian novels, The Handmaid's Tale and its sequel, The Testaments, you might be pleasantly surprised about how well she writes about women in the here and now. So I would definitely recommend Cat's Eye. And well, I think this is all I can say about this incredible novel, Cat's Eye, without spoiling it for people who have not read it yet. So what I'm going to do now, as usual, I'm going to summarize the plot, and I'm going to talk about Cat's Eye in more detail, and there will be some spoilers, okay? So it's up to you if you want to keep watching. I hope you do, though. If you don't want to hear any spoilers about Cat's Eye, please feel free to stop watching right about now, and I hope I'll see you again very soon for another video. Okay, for those of you who are still here, thank you for staying tuned. Now I am going to summarize the plot, as I said, and also I am going to share some thoughts, some further thoughts I had on Cat's Eye. So the novel begins with the return of Elaine Risley to Toronto. Elaine is a painter who is now back in her hometown for a retrospective exhibition of her work. There are two timelines in the novel, the present timeline involving Elaine's visit to Toronto, and the second timeline is Elaine's past. So we learn that when Elaine was little, her family traveled a lot because her father worked as an entomologist, and he specialized in spruce budworms. Anyway, when Elaine turns 8, the family moves to a suburb of Toronto, but she finds it hard to relate to other girls her age. being used to the wild, he doesn't understand the rules other girls live by. However, she makes 3 friends her age: Carol, Grace, and Cordelia. Elaine turns 9, Cordelia and other girls begin to bully her. And this is the incident that I referred to earlier. So one cold winter's day, Cordelia takes Elaine's hat and throws it into a ravine and then tells Elaine to go retrieve it. Elaine stops on the riverbank because her shoes are full of freezing water. She only moves when she has a vision of the Virgin Mary telling her that she can go home. When they're back at school, Elaine decides to ignore Cordelia and find new friends. And from that moment on, she just blocks out any memories of the bullying she suffered. In their teens, Elaine and Cordelia attend the same high school. Elaine does extremely well, while Cordelia struggles academically, and Elaine also becomes cruel to some of the other girls in the high school. One day, Cordelia tries to talk to Elaine about the time when they were younger and what happened, and after that, Elaine begins to avoid her. Because of Cordelia's poor academic record, her parents send her to another high school and she loses touch with Elaine. After graduating from high school, Elaine goes to university and attends an arts college at night because she wants to become an artist. At that time of her life, Elaine has 2 affairs simultaneously, one with her teacher, Mr. Herbeck, and another one with one of her classmates, John. Summer comes and Cordelia and Elaine meet again. The 2 young women catch up on their lives. It turns out that Cordelia is actually doing well now. She's psyched about her internship with a theater company, which she talks about. However, this makes Elaine angry because she feels like Cordelia is doing better than her. So she decides not to stay in touch with Cordelia after that catch-up. Later, Elaine also decides to keep John and end her affair with her teacher, Mr. Herbeck. John moves in, Elaine gets pregnant, and they get married. John and Elaine are both painters, and Elaine has a group of female friends who are also artists, but she feels intimidated by them. However, they showcase some of her paintings in an exhibition that effectively launches her career, even though she also gets some negative reviews from the press. Meanwhile, Cordelia tries to kill herself. She is sent to a rest home when she calls Elaine and begs her to help her run away. However, Elaine refuses to help her. Things are not going well between John and Elaine because he wants her to stop painting, so the couple splits up and Elaine moves to Vancouver. There, in her new city, she meets a man named Ben who becomes her second husband. In Vancouver, also, Elaine meets other female artists, but she's also intimidated by them. She's as intimidated by them as she was by her Toronto artist friends. And things are about to get a lot worse for Elaine because her older brother Stephen is killed by terrorists and her mother becomes terminally ill. Elaine moves in with her mom, and one day, while cleaning, she finds a cat's eye marble, one of those cat's eye marbles in the cellar, and that object reminds her of the incident in the ravine when she was 9. We then move to the present storyline. Elaine makes time before the opening art exhibition. She's just walking around Toronto. She has been away for years at this point and doesn't like how the city has changed. Later at the exhibition, she thinks a lot about her childhood because, you know, she used a lot of the anger she had when she was a little and she poured that into her early paintings, which she's now looking at. Elaine is sure that Cordelia will show up at the exhibition, but she does not. The following day, Elaine visits the ravine of her childhood memories, and for the first time, she recognizes that Cordelia must have felt the same way she did back then, afraid and lonely. Elaine imagines a 9-year-old Cordelia there and mentally tells her to go home. Then on the plane back to Vancouver, Elaine sees 2 older women playing cards and she feels regret that she will never be old and friends with Cordelia. And that's the end of the novel. So there are no fireworks in this novel. The narrative is straightforward, although it follows 2 timelines, but the timelines involve the same main character, which makes them quite easy to follow. I think I expected more from this novel, although I am now not sure what I expected. And the more I think about this novel, the more I think I appreciate it and like it. To me, Cat's Eye is the kind of novel that makes me look at other people's lives and understand them a little bit better. And any novel that increases my empathy for whomever it is, I consider it to be a good and successful novel. And that is how I feel about Cat's Eye by Margaret Atwood. But now I would love to hear your thoughts on this novel if you have read it. And if you haven't read it, let me know what you think of my review and whether you think you will read the novel now. And if you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it with your friends on social media. And remember that you can also follow me on social media. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Bookish Islander. So you can follow me on there and we can talk about books as well on other platforms outside YouTube. This is all from me. I hope you are doing well and I hope to see you again very soon for another book review or bookish video. Bye for now.